Start it back up. My name's Ron. I'm an alcoholic. Welcome to the bonus round, right? What do we got here? We have Chris S. is going to do the price paid for character defects, 6 and 7. I don't have to say much other than let Chris come up here and do his job. Welcome, Chris, please.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Chris, and I am an alcoholic. The price paid for character defects. Holy mackerel. Here's the thing. When I first showed up in Alcoholics Anonymous, I got to tell you, you never would have been able to convince me that one of my major problems was character defects. I thought drinking too much was the big problem, and certainly it was not a good thing at that point in time. But it was said earlier here, you learn things by looking back on them. Looking back on my drinking years and my early years of bitter struggle in Alcoholics Anonymous, I can see some things and I can understand some things a little more clearly. I am an alcoholic. I know what an alcoholic is today. It was at least 6 months to a year being in Alcoholics Anonymous before I really knew what an alcoholic was. I was saying, my name is Chris, I'm an alcoholic, but I thought that meant my name is Chris and I'm a blackout drinker and I crash a lot of cars. It wasn't the same thing. It wasn't the same thing as admitting to alcoholism. Now, alcohol did something for me that I don't believe it does to normal people, and here's basically what alcohol did for me. From a very young child up until about 12 years old, there was this perception I had that I was separate from. There was a perception that I had to work very, very hard to fit in. There was a self-centered fear that I had that I wasn't enough and that I was going to look stupid and you were going to think I was an idiot. I was overwhelmed with this emotional, they call it in the book Alcoholics Anonymous, the bondage of self. I was just separated from, I wasn't a part of, and I thought I had to fake it to be a part of whatever you all were a part of, because there was something drastically wrong with me and with my emotional perception to life. Well, one day a couple of my buddies and I decided that we were going to cut school and we were going to get drunk. And what we did was we passed around a bottle of Four Roses whiskey. And the only thing I can say from this experience is this: everything that was wrong was made right that day. You understand what I'm saying? Everything that was wrong was made right that day. It's funny, the liquor store my first liquor store that I became a frequent proprietor of was named the Spirit Shop. It was Basking Ridge Spirits. And it's kind of funny that back in the day they used to call the liquor stores spirit shops. Now what was wrong with me? What was wrong with me? What was wrong with me was I had a damaged spirit. My spirit was ill. And that's really what alcoholism is. There's a lot of people that get really drunk and cause a lot of trouble that are not alcoholic. There's something that separates us and makes us apart from. And the amazing thing is in the book Alcoholics Anonymous, the early AAs just got it so right. They got it so right. They got the problem right and they got the solution right. And to this day, it's amazing. It's amazing to me. But all right, so everything that was wrong was made right, and I started to use alcohol as a tool to fit in, to feel a part of, to feel connected to. From that moment forward, I started to use alcohol to do that, and you know, in the early days, there was some fun. I got to tell you, the high school party where you get really drunk and everybody's having a good time, and yeah, you break some furniture or set something on fire by accident, but it wasn't that big of a deal, you know what I mean? And it was certainly worth the price of admission, a couple of car crashes or whatever. But it wasn't long before alcohol was extracting a very, very serious price from me. And here's the thing. The way that it made all things wrong right was so important to me. It was much more important than whether I was going to pass school, or whether I was going to keep my driver's license, or whether I was going to stay in a marriage. You know what I mean? It was much more important to that than that. And if you would have said to me, Chris, your alcohol consumption really is causing an enormous amount of problems in your life, and you keep on the way you're going, you're not going to amount to a damn thing, and you're just going to have one problem after another. If you would have said that, I would have said, all right, I guess that's the way it's going to be, because alcohol was a relationship to me. It was the thing that I needed to feel comfortable with myself and my environment. Now, the price paid for character defects. I believe I was born with character defects. Character defects came with me. Understand that when I was 5 years old, I felt apart from you. I remember the first day that my mother took me to kindergarten. I was like, what the hell is this kindergarten crap? I got to go talk to kids. Who came up with this? I got to go into a classroom. This doesn't work for me. There was something tragically wrong with my ability to fit in and to be a part of my community, my family, anything like that. I was just always in my head, always dreaming up bizarre things, and the character defect, I think that it was the heart of all that was a sincere separation from God. A sincere separation from God. I went to Sunday school. I believed in God. I saw God as this thing up in the clouds that, that's being prayed to, and you should worship God. But I didn't see God as a part of my day-to-day life. I just didn't integrate that, into the way I thought I had to live, or the things that were going on. So I'm separate from, and if you remain separated from the herd, different things are going to happen to you. And I developed an overwhelming, toxic, critical self-centeredness. And I learned how not to act really selfish. So you probably wouldn't have recognized it in me, but here's really what my selfishness looked like. It looked like every single thing that happens, I rationalize that to how it's going to affect me. What is this going to mean to me? I think about it before I make friends. Like, why would I make friends with him? I'll make friends with him over here, and it'll be much better for me. So, like, every single action that I took, behind it was this toxic self-centeredness. And how do you know what you don't know? I don't know that I have a fatal case of selfishness. I don't recognize that. You know what I mean? I just think that I'm just trying to get along. This is a weird world, and there's weird people everywhere, and I just got to kind of do the best I can. But then I start moving through my life, and things start to happen, and that selfishness breeds all kinds of other character defects. And there's a great body of work, in the third step. If you don't think you're selfish, there's a couple of pages that are very, very important to read just prior to the third step prayer, because when I read that, it pinned me to the wall. So these character defects, there's a great line in the 12 and 12 that says, defective relationships are almost always the cause of our immediate woes, including our alcoholism. Now, I've thought a lot about that sentence, because that's like the only place in our literature that basically, says what causes our alcoholism. And what causes our alcoholism are these defective relationships. Well, why do you have defective relationships? Because of selfishness, self-centeredness, self-seeking, self-involvement, a perception of self. These are the things that bring us into that separation. So, I drink alcohol, and all that is wrong is made right with that alcohol. And what that alcohol did for me is it removed the selfishness and the self-centeredness for a brief period of time, and I felt like, this is great. This is great. I'm with these great people. This is the coolest place to be. I mean, that's what alcohol did for me. So, guess what? I start drinking it. And I start drinking it every chance I can. It was mentioned earlier, after that Four Roses whiskey, I drank a little bit too much Four Roses whiskey, and if you're a 13-year-old and you drink too much Four Roses whiskey, I will tell you what, you get sick. You know what I mean? And I was violently sick. I had to stay horizontal for a couple days. But the small price to pay, being so sick, I should have been in the emergency room. The small price to pay for that brief period of time where I wasn't separated from you. You know what I mean? So I became preoccupied with alcohol, but I thought, maybe I better not drink Four Roses whiskey moving forward, because that didn't go over too well. So I started drinking the things that the 13-year-olds were drinking at that time, and Boone's Farm apple wine, Strawberry Hill, certainly, Blackberry brandy, Southern Comfort. Did anybody ever drink Southern Comfort after they were like 20? I swear, it's like sugar and alcohol. It's just brutal. I drank this stuff called Hoppengator. Anybody remember Hoppengator? Oh, hand goes up here. It's like a flavored beer, Oh boy. Can you imagine it was like a chocolate flavored beer or something. It was just a Gatorade flavored beer. I don't even remember, but it was terrible. So I started drinking this stuff, and a little like Richie, there was some non-conference approved stuff that was going around that time, and sometimes it would have the same effect on me as alcohol. It would make me feel good and feel right and feel I'm in the right place with the right people, and just kind of melt down into a very comfortable state, which was a positive for somebody like me. And I would do those things. Now, because I'm alcoholic, I don't have a cutoff switch. It's just like I'm always all in. And there was some problems with early on with alcohol, but also with these non-conference approved substances. I remember I remember the great Quaalude epidemic of 1972. Does anybody remember the real Roar 714s? Oh, yeah, there's a lot of, yeah. Oh my God, they stopped making those pretty quick. But they would noodle you, these things, you know what I mean? And the problem was, you were still thinking like everything's fine, but you know, you'd go to, this is back when there wasn't remote controls on the TV, so you'd have to walk across the living room to turn the channel on the TV, and you'd break all the furniture, you know, getting over it. But this one time I'm in school, and this is the first time I ever did them. I had this lower companion named John, who's sober today. What a great guy he is today, but back then he was trouble. Anyway, he walks into the smoking area, and he's got this big bag of these pink pills. You know, we go up there. It's curious. We go up there. What are those? And he goes, they're Quaaludes. And we're like, well, what are those? What are they? And he goes, they're good. My brother gave them to me last night. He'd never done them, you know, but he's selling them. And so we go, okay, the two questions, how much are they and how many do you do? Those are the obligatory questions in a situation like that, if you don't know. So he goes, they're $2 and you do, I don't know, you do 3 or 4. Oh, it's right. So about 50 of us ate 3 or 4 Quaaludes before first period. Made for an interesting day at Ridge High. Oh my God, the ambulance was back and forth all day long. And you know, I'm somewhere in between second period and third period, and I remember I'm walking down a hall, hanging on the lockers like this, and you know, I kind of realize I got to get the hell out of here, right? So I see an exit sign, exit, and I blow for the exit, and I out the door, and I head for the woods. And you know, I get out to the woods, and there's already people out in the woods. They're holding on to trees. You know, it was a debacle. And you know, the next day I'm in class, you know, we're telling war stories and stuff, and there's this guy like laughing at me, and I'm like, what are you laughing at me for? He goes, yesterday, when you broke for the woods? I'm like, yeah. He goes, you ran past the whole 300 wing, you know, which is like 7 classrooms of kids. I go, so? And he goes, it took you 5 minutes to go 100 yards. It was great. I did a lot of stupid things, you know, drinking and, you know, trying to fit in. Every once in a while I let LSD get the best of me, and anybody in here, you know, take a little bit more hands, there's more hands in the right place. This one time, because I live close to New York City, you know, you could head into New York City pretty easily, and we would go in on the weekends, and we would see some of the best bands that's ever been, you know. And I remember, I think this is a Wishbone Ash Foghat concert in New York City, right? And we go in, and you know, I'm always drinking. I'm always drinking at this period of time, and I'm certainly one of the guys that would get drunk before you go to the party or get drunk before you go to the bar. You're wasting a lot of money if you don't have the ballast. So, you know, drunk and sitting in, you know, listening to the first couple of songs from the first band, and my buddy John, the same guy, right, comes in. He goes, "Hey man, they're selling blotter acid in the bathroom, man. Let's go buy some." So I'm like, sure, yeah, you know, sure. He could have said anything, you know. And yeah, I'm in. And we go in there and we buy some LSD, and then we sit back down. We eat it and we sit back down, and like one song goes by. And he looks at me, he goes, "Are you high?" I'm like, "No." "Oh, we got ripped off. Let's go back and buy more." So we go back and we buy more. We take that and we come back and we sit down and we let like one song go by. If you're not experienced, sometimes it takes like 40 minutes for this to work, you know. So a third time we go back and we got, it's the end of the show of the second band, and we're like this. I just pinned out. out, and we can't even talk, right? I remember the lights come up, and it was all I could do to like follow my buddy out of the Academy of Music or whatever it is, and we had all driven in a van. So we get in the van, none of us are talking. We're like this, and we're driving, and to get out of New York City, you have to go through one of the tunnels, the Holland Tunnel or the Lincoln Tunnel, right? You're aware of the tunnels. There's like 8 lanes, 6 lanes, 4 lanes, 2 lanes tunnel. And we're heading down, and we're coming toward it. And somebody in the front of the van goes, "Hey man, we'll never fit," right? And so we get all kinds of concerned. We're really concerned, because it would be a problem if we didn't fit. And so we moved to the front of the van, and we're like, "He's right. It's a mouse hole," And you ever try to back out of the Lincoln Tunnel? Yeah, some of the rudest people in the world in New York City, I'll tell you. It took us like 45 minutes to back out, and we took the bridge. But crap like this is happening, and alcohol is always a part of all this, and I'm always drunk, and I had some problems driving vehicles. Does anybody in here come from a period of time when friends let friends drive drunk? Yep, damn right, Back in my day, you weren't taking anybody's keys away. You know what I mean? That would be a real problem to try to take somebody's keys away back in the day. So I would allow myself to become overserved, and I would crash a lot of cars. And my first DUI, Andrea is right here. Andrea was my date on my first DUI. She figured better. She was smart enough to get a ride home with somebody else. That's for certain. But we went to this place, the Pittstown Inn. Anybody know the Pittstown Inn? And this is like 1974 or something. And the country music, and everybody's having fun. And I remember, the last thing I remember is I'm chugging pitchers of beer. Now, if you're new or coming back and you're a pitcher of beer chugger, that's an important warning sign. Okay, normal people don't just chug a pitcher of beer. You get sticky too, and I remember her looking at me like, "I'm going to get a ride from somebody else." Well, I made it about a half a mile from there, and I hit some black ice, and the car smashed into a bridge abutment going backwards. And I remember I actually got thrown out the back window, which caused me a little concern. I like shake my head, and I'm looking up at the stars, and my legs are still like hooked in the back seat. And I get out of the car's still running. It was a 1968 Toyota, so it's still running. There's not a window left in it. 3 flat tires. It's bent like a boomerang. The drive shaft is slapping the frame. The muffler's off, and I decide to go home. Made sense to me. Where do you go? You go home. So I start driving this thing down the road. Gagga-da-booga-da-wham, gagga-da-booga-da-wham. Like no tires, and I drive right by a cop giving radar. He's like, "What?" And he doesn't even pull me over. He walks me over, because I'm only going about a mile an hour, and he reaches through the missing window and starts shaking me like, "Where'd you have that accident?" I'm like, "What accident?" Glass flying out of my hair. DUI number 1. Oh, jeez. And I could tell you DUI stories till the cows come home. This one time I allowed myself to become overserved again at this party, and I had to piece this together because I woke up in jail. You ever wake up in jail and not know why you're there? I'll tell you one thing you don't do. You don't wake up your bunkmate and ask him. he can be really unconcerned and you know, and quite snippy. So what happened was I put it all together, and this is what happened. I got an argument with somebody because they said something to me. You know how they are. They'll say something to you, and you know it's going to be a problem. And so I got thrown out of the party, and I was driving home. I'm driving a 1962 Buick LeSabre. Okay, it's a big, huge, crappy $50 car. I would never want like expensive cars because, you know, it just wasn't worth it. You know, they'd be in the junkyard soon anyway. So why spend a lot of money? So I'd get these, you know, junk. So what happened was I got really drunk and I passed out and I drove up on this guy's lawn. This is in Florida. And he's outside. He's one of these guys that cares about weeds in his yard. You ever meet somebody like that? They like take the weeds, they're out like clipping bushes and stuff. It's just crazy. He's out there. I drive up on his lawn, I run over his palmetto tree, and then I get back on the road, and the palmetto tree is stuck under my car. And he was pissed that, I ripped the palmetto tree out of his front yard. So he called the police. Well, about 20 blocks down the road, the police followed the dirt down the road. And about 20 blocks down the road, I'm asleep and off to the side of the road with the tree still under my car. You know, and that's when I woke up in jail. But listen, you know, what is wrong with me? Did anybody ever ask you that? What's wrong with you? We don't know when we're caught up in this stuff. We're being driven by this thing called alcoholism, this separation from God, this ego drive. We're being separated, we're being driven, and we're in way more trouble than we think we are, and we've got the wrong problem. We're not concentrating on the right problem. We're concentrating on a lot of crap out here. You know, one of my first lessons about that was I remember going up to my first sponsor, Fish Food Phil, and I give him a call. I go, Phil, they found me. You know, they're gonna come over. They're gonna break my legs. You know, it's all this money and shows. It's really, it's bad. And he would go, what I'd like you to do tonight, Chris, is I'd like you to pray and I'd like you to go to a meeting. And I'm like, what the hell does that have to do with what I just told you? They're going to come get me. What I'd like you to do is go to a meeting. Now it just seems so bizarre to me. Like these sponsors, they're just weird. You know, they've got just a bizarre way of looking at life, you know. But if we're lucky enough, we come in and we listen to him. And here's what he knew that I didn't know. He knew that a lot of the stuff that I'd done in my life, a lot of the stuff that I was continuing to do in my life, was part of my alcoholism. And what he was trying to do was he was trying to get me to address the real problem. People coming over to get me was a symptom of the problem. You know, paying back the money for, fleeing to avoid prosecution, that was the symptom of her leaving me. That was the symptom of my problem. He was the first person to get me to concentrate on what the real problem was: alcoholism. And today I try to do the same thing. I've got a couple of newer guys that I'm working with, and the same kind of thing. They have issues, and they have problems, and they've got situations and all this stuff. And rather than waste my time and theirs by trying to help them manage a life that's already been identified as unmanageable, what I would rather do is I would rather concentrate on getting them to the answer, getting them to the power. And I try to do that. I try to do that today. Now, This is step 6 and 7. What I would like to do is read a little bit of the book, because I like the way this book was written. I cannot tell you how many times I've been through this book, and every single time I open it up, there's something new, and there's something with a whole nother level of profound for me to experience. It is certainly certainly an inspired piece of writing. Okay. Karen, you were talking about the 4th step, the 5th step. Let's say we've put together the whole Megillah in a 5th step and we've shared it with a sponsor. It asks us to do this. Returning home, we find a place where we can be quiet for an hour, carefully reviewing what we have done. We thank God from the bottom of our heart that we know Him better. Taking this book down from our shelf, we turn to the page which contains the 12 steps. Carefully reading the first 5 proposals, we ask if we have omitted anything, for we're building an arch through which we shall walk a free man at last. So what I'm supposed to do after a 5th step is I'm supposed to review the first 5 steps. And I'm supposed to take an hour to do this. I'm supposed to review step 1. I'm an alcoholic. What is an alcoholic? Well, an alcoholic is someone who has the physical craving, who has the allergy to alcohol. How does that show up in me? This is the way it shows up. Every single time I had a drink, it would do one thing, and one thing very consistently. It would ask me to have a second drink. The second drink would insist on the third. The third would demand the fourth. And the more alcohol in my body, the more strong the craving would be. So when I'm in, I'm in. You know, people would say, "Hey, Chris, you wanna go out after work and have a couple beers?" I was smart enough to know, well, can I miss work tomorrow? You know what I mean? Because I at least knew that. I knew that I was all in. We start drinking, I'm going all in. All right, what's the other part of the first step? The other part of the first step is a lot more difficult to grasp. It's the obsession of the mind. And there's a great line in the 12 and 12. Who among us wishes to admit complete defeat? Glass in hand, we've warped our minds to such a state that only an act of divine providence can relieve us of this obsession. Do you know what that sentence is saying? None of us want to admit complete defeat with alcohol. And none of us want to admit that it's warped our minds to such a state that only an act of divine providence can restore us to sanity. Do you know what divine providence is? It's the actual power of God. So, I have an obsession of the mind that only the power of God is going to be strong enough to resolve. I wasn't raising my hand and saying that in the first step meetings for the first couple of months. You know, I understand what they mean. Who among us wants to admit complete defeat? I want to take credit for my sobriety. I want to say, I did 90 and 90, and that's why I stayed sober. Or I got a sponsor in a home group, that's why I stay sober. My ego wants to take ownership of this thing called sobriety. And in the first step, it says, no amount of human willpower is going to help you with this. Doesn't matter how much you want to not drink. Doesn't matter what the causes are. You have no power, choice, and control. The power, the choice, and the control can only come from a power greater than yourself. Do I believe that in step 1? And then there's the dash that our lives have become unmanageable. Now, I'm in AA a little while. And I'm in a first step meeting and I'm talking about all the crashed cars and I'm talking about all, the lost families and all this stuff, right? All well and good. But I believe what the big book is talking about with unmanageability is even worse than that stuff. It's the bondage of self. The unmanageability on a good day looks like this. I'm restful, irritable, discontented. I just don't want to be right here, right now with these people. I want to go. That's on a good day. On a normal day, I'm prey to misery, depression, anxiety, self-centered fear, guilt, shame, remorse, that overwhelming emotional bondage of self that becomes progressive as our alcoholism becomes progressive. And sometimes we just drink just to blot that out. We can't stand that. And we just want some escape, and we drink for oblivion. Anybody in here ever drink for oblivion, just to blot that stuff out? On a really bad day, it's the hideous four horsemen: terror, frustration, bewilderment, despair, pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization. And the alcoholic is many times more likely to take their own life than the non-alcoholic. If you don't believe me, check the box alcoholic when you're getting your life insurance and see what happens. The actuaries understand that. We get to a point where we just cannot stand the pain that we're in, the loneliness, the pain, the bitter morass of self-pity. Okay, that's the unmanageability that they're talking about in this book, I believe. And I believe that this is progressive. Step 3. Step 2, came to believe that a power greater than myself can restore me to sanity. Do I believe that as I'm moving into step 6 and 7? Do I believe that? Well, I started to believe. I came into AA and I thought everybody was a fraud because they were happy and they were laughing, and I had just burnt my life down to the ground. I burned it to the ground. And I thought, these people can't be like me. They're happy. And finally, one day I heard this guy tell his story, and it was my story. And I said, oh my God, this AA thing may work. There may be a power greater than myself that can restore me to sanity. And over the course of time and over the course of step work, I don't believe there's a power that can restore me to sanity. I know there's a power. I see it in many of you. I've experienced it with myself. I've experienced it with the people that I work with. There's a power that we can gain access to that will work in us and through us and resolve our alcoholism, keep us safe and protected, and move us to an amazing life. Move us away from this unmanageability. So my first experience with this was I started to believe AA would work. Then I started to do some step work, and then I started to believe that the God idea would work. Step 3, am I in or am I out? Am I going to come all the way in and sit all the way down? Or am I going to be an alkanaut? Just like orbiting the meetings and coming in for a landing every once in a while? Or am I going to be all in? That's step 3 for me. Is God going to be the principal? Is he going to be the father? Am I going to be his agent? Am I going to work toward an effective relationship with this God? That's already keeping me sober. Am I going to look for a deeper and more effective relationship with this God? And step 3, I need to look at this stuff before I go into 6 and 7. If I can answer yes to that, I say the 3rd step prayer or something like it, and then I move into inventory. Karen was talking about inventory. I need to look at my anger and my resentment. I need to look at the people, the institutions, and the principles that I am mad at, okay? I need to look at my fear. I need to look, and here's the thing. If you're new or just coming back, we're not telling you you're a coward. Okay? Some of us are the craziest bastards on the planet. Well, we do the most daring things. I remember I fell one time climbing a waterfall. I mean, how stupid is it to climb up a waterfall? Logs and stuff coming down. You're not going to convince me I'm a coward, but what I have is I have this anxiety. and this deep anxiety, this separation. I'm not supposed to be right here. I need to look at that because it's an evil and corroding thread. The fabric of my existence is shot through with it. It creates chains of circumstances that cause me innumerable problems and setbacks, and anybody that's anywhere near me is gonna feel the pain of that. Then I need to look at my conduct, especially where it involves intimate relationships. Crazy enough, being as alcoholic as I was and as self-centered as I was, there were relationships, right? And I need to go back and really examine those for the harm I've caused and for how my defects of character have manifested within those relationships. I need to look at all that stuff. And if I've done a decent job with the first 5 proposals, if I've done my job with steps 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, what I can do is, it says here, if we can answer to our satisfaction that we've done the best we can with the first 5 steps, we then look at step 6. We've emphasized willingness as being indispensable. Are we now ready to let God remove all the things which we have admitted are objectionable? Can He now take them all, every one? On the surface, that's easy to do. God, take away all the things that caused me my problems in life. So I believe that there's 2 things that's very, very true about step 6 and very, very true about step 7 that may seem to go at odds. One of them is you can do these 2 steps in 10 minutes. That's true. The other thing that's true about these 2 steps is they'll take you the rest of your life. What I have noticed in my own life is many character defects become removed. They're just removed. Early on, the things that kept me from being able to be of help to you were removed right away. The things that annoyed me didn't seem to get any real traction. But I believe that God removes these character defects. Now, I want to say something. If you're the type of person who thinks you need to work on your character defects and you have the power to fix all your character defects, what you're really admitting is you're a dick. You know what I mean? Think about it. Right? Why haven't you done a better job, I truly believe that the only power great enough to resolve these defects of character that came with me, that are my default setting, that are ingrained in my character. The only power great enough to move me away from these character defects is the power of God. And there's another great line in the 12:12. It says, God will not render us white as snow without our cooperation. So the question then really kind of needs to be, how then shall I cooperate? What's the process for my cooperation for the removal of my defects of character? First of all, I have to humbly ask God, from an attitude of surrender, from an attitude of defeat, I have to humbly ask God to remove these defects of character. From an attitude knowing that these character defects are greater than I am being driven by these character defects. So I have to approach them with that in mind. And it says here, when ready, we say something like this: my Creator, I'm now willing that you should have all of me, good and bad. Why is it saying good and bad? Well, if you're anything like me, some of the things that you think are good are really bad, and some of the things that you think are bad are really good. So you may not be the best judge of some of these character defects. You've been too close to them. So how about we offer all of it, the good and the bad? If there is something that's really good, it'll probably stick around. I pray that you now remove from me every single defect of character which stands in the way of my usefulness to you and my fellows. The defects of character which stand in the way of my usefulness to you and my fellows. Not the character. It's like if I was in charge of which character defects, I would have done a bad job. You know, I would have picked the wrong ones first. So every single defect that stands in the way of my usefulness to God and my fellow man. Now, remember, at heart, my alcoholism is a separation from you and from God. That's what's at the heart of my alcoholism. So this prayer goes absolutely against my alcoholism. It's the step work is trying to fit me to be of maximum usefulness to God and my fellow man. That's the antidote to alcoholism. A life of service, understanding charity and compassion. You know, I know my default setting is still very, very selfish. You know what I'd like to do on a Saturday? I would like to close the door, I'd like to turn on my computer, and I'd like to binge watch Netflix. And you know, just stay away from me, leave me alone. I'm going to go into my own world here, and I'm going to escape. That's what my default setting is. Do you know, that's not what ever happens. I'm always involved in some goddamn thing, you know, like helping people. You want to talk about the power of God? The power of God drags me away from HBO binge watching. You know, that's pretty powerful, because that's what I want. That's what my self wants to do. But my spirit has been moved by this power of God, and I go all over the place now, trying to be of help. Hell, I've been with Peter in 7 different states. You know, Karen, 4 or 5 different states doing stuff. I didn't try to do this. I didn't want to do this. I've been invited to do this, right, Peter? And you know, I got to tell you, it's absolutely remarkable. So, you know, the cost we have to pay for character defects, if they continue, the cost is our life. The cost is our soul. That's what the cost is. I believe alcoholism is our character defects. Tell me, what's more selfish than going to the liquor store at 8 o'clock in the morning and buying 2 quarts of vodka, going back home and shutting the door and turning off the phone and going at it? You're not available for anybody. You can't be of any help to anybody. All you're doing is disappearing into the world of alcohol. And there's absolutely nothing more selfish than that. Because I think we've been placed on this planet to try to get some stuff done, to try to be of help, to try to leave some type of a mark or some type of a legacy. I think that's in the DNA that God gave us. So listen, if you're new or you're coming back, I'll tell you this: get yourself a sponsor. Get yourself someone who has working knowledge and experience with the book Alcoholics Anonymous. Place yourself unreservedly under their care and protection and move through these steps. And take these suggestions, do these proposals, even if you think they're stupid, even if, because your case is so different, they're not going to really work for you. Do it anyway. Do it anyway. That's all I got. Thanks.
If anybody wants to get the CD set of today's workshops, please place your order now. And 5 minutes after the last talk, the set to be ready. Thank you.
And thank Chris. Thank you one more time for coming out, Chris. Okay. You know, every one of our speakers comes here tonight at their own time and expense. Please take the time, if you at least get a line and thank them, or thank them during the night as you see them. We're going to take a break. Chris stopped a couple minutes early, so it caught us all by surprise. So we get an extra couple minutes. So kindly get your trash, put that in the trash cans, go get a smoke, go to the bathroom, and we'll see you when you get back.